Before we get started with the pattern, you want to first make sure you have all the materials. So first we'll be needing some yarn. The one that I'm using is by Red Heart. It's the Supersaver in the size medium 4. And the color I'll be using today is called Petal Pink, but feel free to use whatever color you want your heart to be. Next we'll be needing some stuffing, a crochet hook. The size I'm using is 3.5 millimeters, a pair of scissors, a needle, any sewing needle will do, and a stitch marker. If you don't have a regular stitch marker, you can use a small safety pin like I am here. Now to start the tutorial, we're going to first make a magic circle or a magic ring. And to do this, you're going to take your yarn, place it around the 2 fingers mark, secure it with your thumb, and you're going to wrap it around your fingers, bring it back, and make an X like so. Then you're going to place it parallel to the other strand of yarn and secure it with your other fingers. So on this side you should have an X, and on the other side you should have 2 parallel lines like so. Next you're going to take your hook. You want to make sure that your actual hook part is facing down, and you're going to go under the first strand, hook the second one, gently pull, make a twist, and now you have a loop on your hook. Now you're going to make sure your hook is facing up, and you're going to go under this strand of yarn on the left here, and you're going to hook it and bring the strand into the loop that we just made. Now if you let go of your hand, you should see a little circle like this, and it should have a little tail attached to it. So if you pull on this tail over here, your circle will get smaller, and if you pull on the circle itself, it'll get bigger. So I like to have my circle relatively on the smaller end. I would say the size of a quarter. And this is our magic ring. So now we're going to single crochet 6 into the magic ring, and to do this we're going to take our hook and bring our hook into the magic circle like so, and bring this yarn in the back forward. So now you have 2 loops on your hook. You're going to yarn over, so just wrapping the yarn over your hook and bringing it through both loops. And that is your first single crochet. Now we're going to do this 5 more times to get 6 single crochets into the magic circle. So again, you're going to take your hook, bring it into the magic circle, bring the yarn that's currently in the back forward, and then yarn over and bring it through both loops. And there's your second single crochet. So we're going to do this 4 more times to get 6 single crochets into the magic circle. Now that we're done with the 6 single crochets, if you look at the side over here, you should see a bunch of braids. People also call these V's, but I think they look more like braids, so I'm going to call them braids. but you should have 6 of these because every braid is 1 single crochet. So if I count from the bottom, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. That means I'm on the right track with this pattern, so I'm going to take my hook out, and then we're just going to pull on this little tail over here to close up the magic circle. Once your little disc is formed, you want to look at the side to make sure that your stitches are visible. So as you can see here, you can clearly see the braids, and there should be this little donut thing being formed in the middle. If, however, your braids are kind of twisted, like this for example, you can always adjust with your fingers, then gently pull on the tail, adjust, and pull. You just want to make sure that the braids are visible on the outside edge of your disc because this will make things a lot easier for you going forward. Now we're going to close up the disc by doing a slip stitch. So you're going to place your hook back in the loop, tighten it by pulling on the strand that's currently attached to your big ball of yarn, and you want to make sure that this part is relatively tight. So the way I like to do it is wrapping it around my pinky and then having tension here. I've also seen people wrap it under 2 fingers and then having it tight here. So play around with it and see what feels the most natural to you. Okay, so next we're going to find our next stitch, which is the first braid over here. And we're going to take our hook and go underneath the 2 braids. Ooh. Like so. Then you're going to yarn over and bring the strand into both loops. Sometimes you might see that your yarn might unravel like this. You can just twist it to make it a bit tighter. So back to the slip stitch, we are now going to bring it into both loops. And that is a slip stitch. So now your disc should be pretty nicely formed and like a nice circle. And that is the end of round 1. Before we start round 2, I'm going to take my stitch marker and I'm going to place it on the last stitch or last braid that we just made, so that as we work the next round, I know this is the last stitch that I'm going to be working in. If you don't have this, you'll have to manually count, and it's super easy to lose count that way, so I highly recommend using a stitch marker or even a bobby pin. So to start round 2, we're going to do increases around the circle. Increases are essentially 2 single crochets but into the same stitch. So we're going to find our next stitch, which is our braid over here, go underneath, and we're going to bring the yarn over, but only go through that 1 braid so that you have 2 loops on your hook. Then we're going to yarn over and pull it through both loops. And that is a single crochet. So to do an increase, we're going to do the exact same thing but into the same hole. So going back into that same braid right here, we're going to bring the yarn over so that we have 2 loops on our hook, yarn over, and then pull it through both loops. And that is your first increase stitch. So as you can see here, this is the last stitch of our last round. That means this is our first stitch of round 2. And because we did an increase, you should be able to see 2 braids because we did 2 single crochets into 1 stitch down here. So we're going to repeat this 5 more times until we get 6 increases around the circle. So we're going to go under the braid, bring your yarn forward, yarn over, and then pull through both loops. And we're going to go back into the same hole to do our increase, bring the yarn forward so that there's 2 loops, yarn over, and pull through both. So now there are 4 braids because we just did 2 increases. So now we're going to continue doing our increases until we reach our stitch marker. Now that I'm going into my last stitch, I'm going to remove my stitch marker and finish off the round. Now if you count around, there should be 12 single crochets. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. That means I know I'm on the right track, so I'm going to put my stitch marker in. And now we're ready for the next round. For round 3, we're going to single crochet all around the circle. That means every braid gets just 1 single crochet. So we're going to find our next braid, put our hook under, bring the yarn forward, yarn over, then pull it through both loops. So instead of going into the same hole now, we're just going into the next one. So going under the braids, bring the yarn forward, yarn over, and then pull through. Now we're just going to work it all around until we reach our stitch marker. I'm going to count again just to make sure we have the right amount of stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Perfect. So I'm going to place my stitch marker in. And now that if you see your crochet project is kind of curving in, this is completely normal. You just want to make sure that the side with the tail is on the inside. So for me, it's inside out. I'm just going to flip it the other way around. As you work through your crochet project, you should always be working from the outside, not the inside out. So now I'm going to remove my hook, and this is the first half of the tops of our heart. So I'm going to cut this piece right around here. You don't need it to be too long, so this length would be just sufficient. And I like to pull on the middle part to really close up that little middle circle. And I'm also going to snip this off. I like to leave a little bit hanging. So now I'm going to set this piece aside, and we're going to repeat the rounds 1 to 3 to make another one of these. But something really important to note is that do not cut the yarn after you make your second piece. You want to make sure that your second piece is still attached to your big ball of yarn. Feel free to go back to the start of this video, and I'll see you when we have both pieces ready. Okay, so now that you have both pieces ready, we're going to start joining these two together. But first, another reminder, please make sure that your yarn is still attached to the big ball of yarn, because that is what we're going to be working with. So to join these two pieces together, you're going to take the piece that's currently cut. I'm just going to thread that over, and we're going to find the next stitch, which is the braid over here, and this is where we'll be starting this new round. Essentially what we're doing is we're connecting these two pieces through one single crochet. So to do this, you're going to take your hook and you're going to go through the first stitch like so. You're going to take the yarn that's attached to your big ball of yarn. Also, you want to first make sure both sides are facing the correct direction. You're going to take your yarn and bring it forward. So there's 2 loops. You're going to yarn over and then pull it through the 2 loops like so. And now you can see that there's one single crochet, but it's attaching both pieces together. Now we're going to single crochet all around until 10 stitches. So since our previous stitch marker is here from our last round, and we just made one single crochet, we just have to do this 9 more times to reach the 10 single crochets. So we're going to go into our next stitch and do the exact same thing. Bring our yarn forward, yarn over, and then pull through both loops. So now I'm going to do this 8 more times until we reach the 10 single crochets. Once you have all your 10 single crochets finished, if you take a look on the side here, we're technically missing 2 stitches because we've been crocheting 12 all around up until this point, and this is exactly what we want. We want to be skipping these last 2. So now we're going to be joining this side with the other side, and because we skipped 2 on this side, when we work through the other side, we're going to be skipping the first 2 stitches as well. If we look at the stitches here, this is the stitch we already worked through, so our next braid going forward would be 1, 2, and 3. So we'll be working into the 3rd stitch over here. And it's going to be the exact same thing as when we first joined these 2 pieces together, so we're going to be working it through a single crochet. So you're going to take a look, find your 3rd stitch, get your hook through, take your yarn, bring it forward so that there's 2 loops on your hook, yarn over, and pull through. Now as you can see, both sides of the pieces are joined together by a single crochet. And you might notice that there's quite of a gap here. This is completely normal, don't be alarmed. This is where we'll be putting the stuffing in later. So now we're going to be doing the exact same thing and single crochet 10 stitches until we reach our stitch marker. So that counted as 1 stitch, which meant now we only have to do 9 more. And there you go. That is your 4th round finished. So I'm going to take my stitch marker and mark the last stitch that we just finished. And now we're ready for round 5. For this round, we're going to be doing decreased stitches. Don't worry, I'll teach as we go, but this round will be worked in sets. So one set would be 3 single crochets and then a decrease. So let's start with the 3 single crochets first. We're going to go into our next stitch. We're going to bring the yarn forward and loop it through. So that would be 1 single crochet. Now we're working on our 2nd, and then our 3rd. So once you have 3 single crochets finished, we're going to do our first decrease. And for this pattern, we'll be doing invisible decreases so everything looks smoother overall. Up until this point, we've been working our stitch underneath the braid, but for invisible decreases, we're only going to go through half of it. So if you look at your braid, there's one side here and one side here. We're only going to go through the front side. So that's called the front loop. And instead of going through 1, we're going to go through 2 at a time. So we're going to go through the front loop of the 2nd stitch, and now you have 3 loops on your hook. So you're going to bring your yarn forward, but only to the first 2 loops. So you're going to bring that forward like so. And now you have 2 loops on your hook, and you're just going to yarn over and bring it through both. And that is your first decrease. So as you can see, even though we worked into 2 stitches, we only made 1. And if we look back to our starting point, we only have 4 stitches even though we've worked into a total of 5. That's because when you do decrease stitches, you're slowly shrinking the project, and that's what we're doing right now. So that's going to count as 1 set, and we're going to do that 3 more times to get a total of 4 sets. So going back with our 3 single crochets, there's 1, 2, and our third one. Now we're going to go ahead with our decrease stitch. So we're going to find our next 2 stitches, which is these 2, loop it through the 2 front loops, bring our yarn forward, but only through the first 2 loops. So now that you have 2 loops, and then bring everything together like so. And that is our second set. Now we're going to do this 2 more times until we reach back to our stitch marker. Once you're done with all your stitches, be sure to put your stitch marker back in. And that completes our 5th round. So now we're ready for the next step. At this point, you can also really start to see your heart taking shape. I always love this part because it's like, ooh, my project is actually coming together. Anyways, now moving into our 6th round, we're going to do 2 single crochets and then a decrease. And we're going to do that 4 times around as well. So we're going to find our next stitch, go in for our first single crochet, and then make our second single crochet, and now we're going to do our first decrease. So the same thing, going through the 2 front loops, bring the yarn over the 2 loops, and then bring it all together. And that is our first set. So now we're going to do this 3 more times until we come back to our stitch marker. Okay, now I'm going to place my stitch marker in, and that completes round 6. At this point, you might have noticed that it's getting a little harder to crochet just because everything's a lot tighter and close together. My advice here is to just be patient, go slow with your stitches, and continue at a steady pace. Now for round 7, we're going to be doing sets of 1 single crochet and 1 decrease. So we're going to find our next stitch here and start our first single crochet. Now we're going to do our decrease, so going through the 2 front loops, bring our yarn over, and then bring everything together. Now we're going to do this 3 more times until we return to our stitch marker. Now I'm going to put my stitch marker back in. And now we're officially done with the second last round. And for our very last final round, we are going to be closing up the heart. And to do that, we'll be doing decreases all around. But instead of 4 stitches, we're only going to be doing 3 stitches. So I'm going to go into the first one, loop it through, and then bring it together. Now I'm doing my second decrease. Going in the 2 front loops. Bring the yarn forward and then looping everything together. And now I'm going to do my last decrease. So this last one will be pretty challenging just because it's much harder to see your stitches because everything is wrapped up together. Tug on the ends a little bit if you need to, and find your remaining stitches. If you find that your hole is still really big, you can do an additional decrease, so 4 decreases in total, but I find that 3 is just enough, so I've only written 3 in my pattern, but depending on how your project is currently progressing, you may need an extra decrease. And there you have it. You are officially done with the crocheting part of this pattern. So you can put your stitch marker away as we will no longer be needing it. And if your crochet project looks a little goofy right now, don't worry, we'll fix it in the sewing and stuffing stage. So I'm going to take my hook out and I'm going to cut about this much for sewing. Now I'm going to pull the yarn through like so. And then we're going to start stuffing it in here. So I'm going to take my stuffing, although this is probably way too much. So I'm going to start with a small piece and you're going to open up the gap on top and you're going to start putting the stuffing in. If you want your heart to be on the firmer side, put more stuffing in, and if you want your heart to be on the softer side, put less stuffing in. So this step is definitely up to your personal preferences. Once you're happy with the way your heart looks, we're going to start sewing the top shut. So you're going to take your needle and thread the yarn through. I like to leave a little bit out like so. And then I'm just going to go in from the bottom and aim it towards the top. So I like to have it around here. I'm going to go in from the bottom and have the needle come out around here. And you're going to gently pull through until all your yarn is on the top. Now, I'm not the best sewer, so I'm sure there's a better technique to doing this, but the way I do it is just going back and forth, kind of like a zigzag formation. So if you're a better sewer, this is where you'll definitely shine. So I'm going to start from this side. I'm going to pull the yarn through, and then I'm going to go in from the other side and then pull the yarn through. Now I'm going to repeat this until the gap is sewn shut. Once your gap has been sewn shut, we can start securing the yarn. To do this, I'm going to go near where my yarn is and aim it through the bottom of the heart. And you want to gently pull through. I'm going to do this again, so going near my yarn is, and then aiming it somewhere slightly further away. So about halfway here. I'm going to do this a third time just to make sure everything is secure, like so. Now you can cut your yarn. And you are officially done with your little puffy heart crochet. So the thing that I love about crochet is that sometimes your projects might look a bit lopsided like this. The good thing is you can always reshape it and make finishing touches at the end. So if you want your heart to be on the flatter side, you can press it down. And if you want it on the thicker side, you can press on the sides to make it more puffy. And there you have it. If this was your very first crochet project, congratulations. I'm so thankful that you followed along. If you want to see more tutorials like this, do be sure to subscribe. And if you like this video, do give it a thumbs up. Other than that, thank you so much for watching, and hopefully I'll see you in another tutorial.